Sorry about that.
I'd like to invite Dr. N Saravanan, President and CTO, Ashok Leyland, for this valedictory session. He will be joined by Mr. Gaurav Gupta, Chief Commercial Officer, MG Motor India. Gaurav, welcome to our at the Automotive Electronics Conference. It's indeed a pleasure to have you.
I'm sure.
So we will start off this session with an address by Dr. Saravanan. Dr. Saravanan, it's indeed an honor. May I request you to kindly address us?
Yes, please. Can I share a presentation, please?
Yes, please. Yeah, sure.
Just
Can you see the share screen button at the bottom of the screen, Dr. Saravanan?
Is it visible?
Yes, it is visible.
All right.
Perfect. Thank you.
I think, first of all, it's my privilege to be part of this conference when you have veterans like Mr. Srinivas, others like that. I'm just sort of overwhelmed with what I'm going to say in this presentation. But I think what I wanted to bring was a perspective from OEM perspective, right? In terms of electronics, and more particularly, what is the perspective of a commercial vehicle OEM? A lot of people have talked about ecosystem. And I think while ecosystem rather than the product could be good in a passenger vehicle, it's a necessity in a commercial vehicle. What we are seeing trend-wise is a lot of movement towards mobility as a service, particularly in electric vehicles. We also see a lot of, therefore, a push towards connectivity and so on. And that itself drives you to have more electronics in a vehicle. More electronics, a tighter integration with electronics and software. So therefore, I want to talk a little bit about how do we leverage not just electronics in the product, but also the entire stack, tech stack as you can call it, to differentiate the offering as an OEM. Yeah. Just some of the key drivers I see, particularly over the next 5 years, that are actually going to drive the amount of electronics and the software in the vehicle, of course, are connected vehicles, both driven by the fact that you have to be mobility as a service, more features, more ecosystem, and so on. Next is electrification of powertrains. This again is driven by both a combination of TCO becoming better, in some cases total cost of ownership. In some other cases, it's more driven by regulation or by even CO2 mandates that these companies have, right? And of course, third point, shared mobility. Again, when especially in small commercial vehicles, this could be a play. And of course, fourth, autonomous, a little bit slower maybe in India compared to overseas, but nevertheless, I think it is going to happen in maybe close environments, especially in commercial vehicles, in my perspective. That could be the key drivers. And some areas which related to that are, of course, sensors, which play a key role, the ECUs and various controllers. Then we have power electronics, of course, is a new area, bigger area, getting bigger and bigger because of electrification and so on. And to me, the key would come down to not just hardware, design, architectures, and so on, but also how do we tightly integrate as an ecosystem with the software, right? There comes the capability of software development, integration, verification, and of course, other components, which are the standard harnesses and controls and switches in this. Yeah. Sort of is what I see are the key drivers, key to the growth. Just I think people are familiar, but I wanted to give an example, a success story of what ecosystem can do. I think you can talk about Apple ecosystem and so on, but this is more of a product ecosystem. You can also give an example of Tesla doing something similar. But this is my favorite example because I love running, so I picked the example of Peloton. Peloton, you're aware of, is a company that took the market of having a stationary cycle or a treadmill and made the ecosystem. What they did was purely, nothing superior about the product they have. It is all related to making an ecosystem around that product, right? They connected the product. With that, they're able to do multiple offerings, not just as a product, but also as a maybe subscription-based classes, the way you connect, the way you stick the customer. So this to me becomes critical. So imagine you replace the product, which is the treadmill here, with a vehicle. Now you can imagine the multiple possibilities that can happen. Yeah, especially if it's commercial, right? How can you interact with the insurance company? How can you interact with the financial company? How can you insurance with the logistics company? How can you interact with the customer? How do I update my vehicle software? How do I update the software based on the performance point at that point? And multiple things happen. So I think it's just to me to showcase the fact that a lot of learnings in terms of ecosystem as a key differentiator, key value deliverer could happen, will happen in the commercial vehicle industry. I just wanted to emphasize that point. Same example, right? If you just look at this, I quick example from BCG analysis. But nevertheless, if you look at on the left-hand side, you have basically selling a commercial van. A commercial van is sold to a customer who wants to make money off the van. Right? Nothing more, nothing less. It's not based on styling. It's not based on anything else. It is based on basic parameters, and it has to have the ability to make money. Now, what happens if you actually take the vehicle and actually provide the customer the entire ecosystem, which starts with, of course, having a certain hardware capability in the vehicle, having a certain interface capability in the vehicle, be able to talk in the ecosystem, having a certain software to the interface and so on. Then look at the right side, what can happen? You can not only start talking about just looking at track and trace of vehicles, which is basic, look at upfitting of the vehicle as required. I mean, for example, talked about seats, and if somebody's asking about seats, you can imagine a scenario where you actually have the seats, and if somebody pays, you switch on the option of heating and cooling the seats, right? Someone doesn't pay for it, doesn't happen. I mean, this is an example where maybe it's not the right example, but just an example, right? Things like that. You can have fleet management solutions, insurance companies giving a preferential insurance because your driving behavior is good. You can have, if it's EV vehicle, EV charging options. When do you do it? How do you do it? Where do you do it at the lowest cost? Multiple options. So I think as OEMs, we are always trying to look at these options. I think to me, the key to making this happen is the electronics, the hardware, and the software that goes with the entire tech stack. And that to me, therefore, as I think Srinivas was saying, the future is not the mechanical. Guys like me or mechanical engineers are going to be obsolete. Either we sort of retool ourselves, or we have to actually get the skills that actually the vehicles are going to differentiate less and less by mechanical parts, more by a tech stack that they provide in the vehicle. So what are some of the key requirements to execute this, right? Of course, the connectivity and software, not just advanced product features that differentiate, but also how does the differentiation happen with respect to a customer experience and productivity? And to me, more importantly, the tech platform, right? I think this is a differentiator. It's a combination of hardware and software and the tech stack. How do we sort of build as OEMs tech stacks that are efficient? I mean, there are multiple options, right? You can actually go out and work with multiple partners, do it that way. I mean, I'm actually bold over to think about this, right? If you look at most product launches over the last 5 years, look at the key reason for delay. Invariably, not because of mechanical parts failing, it's because of software not being ready. And that tells you how critical a software has become in the development process. Of course, software tied to the hardware, but that is the criticality of it. So therefore, the OEM's ability, along with its partners, to have this tech platform that is scalable, modular, cost efficient, becomes a key going forward, right? I mean, you can imagine a typical life cycle of a vehicle is about 5 years. With certain maybe scalability in the tech platform, you can actually make the vehicle life cycle from 5 to 7 years. And a good example is Tesla is doing it on a 10-year-old vehicle, able to reflash and make it contemporary in terms of features and so on. That's an example, but in commercial vehicles, similar examples you can find. Just an example, right? As why this again, why it becomes critical to own the entire, or to at least have visibility in the entire stack, right? One, of course, you have, if you take electric vehicle, you have on the left-hand side the actual hardware, and then you have middleware controls and so on and so forth. And then you need to have the tech stack and digital platform to be able to interact with the ecosystem. So I think it becomes much more critical to have the entire visibility into the ecosystem play, have the skills to do it. And therefore, that is to me where I would see potential gaps in terms of skill availability if they execute such a offering. Again, in a different way, if you look at, for example, a connected cockpit example, what all has to go into making it visible, right? Of course, the bottommost layer is your physical layer in terms of hardware. And then you have the middleware layer, which actually has things like over-the-air updates and so on and so forth. And then you have middleware layer and the cloud. So I think just to execute one function clearly, you need to have so much going on. So therefore, again, to emphasize, it is the entire tech stack. Yeah. What are some of the key success factors as I see it? I think to me, more than designing chip in India, I think even if we have the chips in India, to be able to have the talent to execute this, right? The organization and talent becomes very important, because these are not specific skills. They actually need to be have cross-functional skills, cross-functional teams to be able to work together. because these developments have to happen faster. And that is the next point in terms of process-wise development process. We start looking at not just a waterfall process, we start looking at a continuous release process supported by agile development and so on. And this itself requires the ability to work cross-functionally at its speed. Third, of course, tools. A lot of speakers covered that in terms of tools required to be able to accelerate the development velocity. And fourth, of course, is the proper governance, both in terms of positioning agile, data security, and so on. So, yeah. And just sort of to summarize, I think what was probably a short presentation. I think clearly the need for autonomous electrification connectivity is driving the electronics. We need to really start thinking as an ecosystem approach from product approach, and that means I need to look at hardware, software, stack, linear technology stack to achieve ecosystem benefits. I think key success to me include the right skills, organizational structure, and process. And that sort of was my sort of a quick perspective on where I see the automotive electronics going for the next few years. And I think that was my last slide. So thanks for that. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Saravanan, for highlighting, how you look at electronics sort of contributing or continuing to grow in the context of the automotive sector with focus especially on commercial vehicles. I would now request our next guest, Mr. Gaurav Gupta from MG Motor, to address us. Gaurav, over to you.
Good afternoon, Dipanshu. And when someone is following Dr. Saravanan's overview, these are big shoes to fill in, especially for a commercial officer to try and talk after a technical lead. It does get challenging. But I must say that the way we've seen at MG, and I think I fully echo and support the philosophy what Dr. Saravanan has mentioned about software and hardware coming together. In fact, when did we as the world is evolving, we are seeing that the technical aspects about horsepower, etc., are going to get more or less commonized. But the software being a key differentiator becomes the key aspect of a consumer draw and a consumer pull as well. In fact, there's one chart which I don't know if it's okay to show here. I don't know. I'm going to struggle as to how I'll be able to show you that chart, Dipanshu.
You can share your screen, Gaurav. There's a green button at the bottom of the screen if you can see.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, and there it is. So if I was to do a full screen, would you be able to see it now?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so for us, the way we see this is that we see exactly in the lines of the future being typically on the 4 pillars of CASE, which is connected, autonomous, shared, and electronics. And this is where we are seeing that a lot of innovations are happening in the global field. And if you see the trend of the names that I'm putting on the chart now, none of these are traditional companies which would be in the auto space. None of them would have the experience in the past of strong hardware, chassis system, engine system, etc. Most of them have actually evolved from software or electronics. So actually the way we are seeing the future is the confluence of OEMs, of course, but software developers, electronics engineers, all of them coming together to really create the mobility solutions for the future. And that is where the electronics come and play a huge role. In fact, the key role as we go forward. In fact, there are thoughts about, when consumers are going to look at cars in the future or even commercial vehicles in the future, it's about, what all can I do to continue my connected world in that mobility space. So you are transferring your living room into your vehicle, whichever you are in, so that there is continuity about your connected space. And if you look at the new generation, the next generation of buyers, the youngsters today, for them, it's all about experience rather than ownership. And experience is all about continuity for them. So that is why we see that all these new startups, these new tech companies who are getting into it, most of them are all into the tech auto space. And that's why when you look at the 4 pillars of connected, autonomous, shared, electric, this is what the future of automotive industry is. All of this actually will evolve on the pillar of, on the base of all electronics and software. So software being a differentiator will really be the key driver for the mobility solutions for the future. Connected systems, and we talked about our partners have spoken about ecosystem. I'll be happy to share over here that, in the case of ecosystem, it is the way we also did at MG. We knew that we could not be doing it ourselves. So when we started our first connected car, which is the MG Hector, we actually showcased our entire ecosystem. Not just the partners of the organization at the back end, in terms of who support the entire, whether it is an SAP-based system, because it's all about connectivity, about parts availability eventually for your cars. So if your car needs a repair, it notifies your system. The system eventually notifies that the nearest workshop. The workshop system at the back end confirms that the part is available or not. That gets into an update at the part dispatch center, and everything is connected. So not just in the car, but outside the car as well. So this is an example of an ecosystem that we have worked with, both for connected cars, whether it is your partners for maps, for your engagement partners for entertainment, utility partners. This is how I think the future will evolve, definitely. Same thing for autonomous. We just learned about the connectivity as well. Again, for autonomous also, when we brought in the first autonomous car SUV in the premium level premium segment, and we got the level 1 autonomous, and level 2 also is coming in the Aster now. It was all about connected. It's all about the technology we are bringing in. Likewise for shared, when we talk about shared, we've talked about Ubers and Olas of the support system, but we're looking at something beyond that as shared, car as a service. Will people actually own the car, or they want to share a car through combined ownership? So it's not just rentals, but you're looking at a membership program option, for example. So these are things which will be coming in as we go along. And then for all of this, the entire, the workhorse will actually become electronics as well as your software, electric car as well. We talked about, again, the electric vehicle ecosystem. And for the ecosystem, again, it's important, not only just the charging companies, but at the same time, the infrastructure companies, the recycling of the battery, second life of the battery, how to extend the life of the battery, and along with that, the internet ecosystem. So it's all about, electronics ecosystem that is going to drive the world of the future. And same thing that what's coming in now with our MG Aster, which we just launched about a few days ago, unveiled the technology with AI inside. So you can imagine that the whole future of automotive moves towards technology wherein car becomes a platform. And that's what I mentioned in the beginning, that when you make car as a platform, it opens up a plethora of opportunities. Again, from a perspective of utility, entertainment, security, you name it. And that is where the entire performance, the entire connectivity, all of this will be residing on electronics as well as your software. Other than that, the other stuff will become a very, I won't say become base, but it will be a kind of given as to what that is all about. And this will become the differentiator on the future. And with this, you really will keep driving to close the loop for your power electronics and for your entire communication system going forward. Whether it's your watch connectivity, whether it is your over-the-air updates. We talked about Tesla, like we do in MG cars, also over-the-air updates for software upgrades. So all of this will actually be the way the future evolves. So ecosystem, connectivity, electronics, software as a differentiator, eventually car being a platform will be the way the future is going to evolve. That's what I would like to, share with all of you at this point in time. And with that, stop share. There we go. So that is how the Pangshu we see it. That's the way we look at the evolving area of automotive and mobility solutions being driven by software as a differentiator, and more and more partners coming in with entry barriers also getting reduced. So it's going to be a very exciting phase. And I think as we all work with startups, we all work with new challenging some of the past norms. I think it'll be a very, very exciting space as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Gaurav. Thank you for sharing with us this whole journey, right from, like you said, starting with creating an internet ecosystem with the Hector, moving into the electric ecosystem, and now with the Aster, talking about car as a platform. So thank you, gentlemen. Thank you very much for speaking to us, participating in this conference. I would now request, if you have any questions, I would be happy to take it up with our speakers today. But if not, I would. Okay. There's one question, Dr. Saravanan, for you from one of our delegates. If I may please take that to you. This delegate wants to know, how can engineers upskill in multi-core, multi-controller domain?
I think it's probably an area which is too specialized. I don't think you can just go off and upskill yourself. It requires basic training in terms of microcontroller design. I would say application-wise you can learn, but I think if you want to design multi-core, it's a different stream altogether from my, but the experts others. But I think that's you can't be a mechanical engineer and start getting into chip design. It's not that straightforward. I think if you're a core electrical engineer, yes, I'm sure you can work out.
All right. All right. At this stage, I'd like to invite my colleague, Mr. T. Murli, to kindly deliver the vote of thanks. Murli?
Yeah.
You may switch on your video, please.
Yes, I did. Am I visible? Am I audible?
You are audible. We can't see you yet.
Yeah. Am I visible? Vivek?
No, you are not.
We can't see you yet, Murli, but please proceed.
Okay, no problem. Good afternoon. It was nice to hear the experts speak on opportunities and challenges in the automotive electronics space. We understand from them that future mobility presents tremendous opportunities for the automotive electronics, as the segment is expected to reach close to $500 billion by 2030. There is a need to look at hardware and software as a tightly knit technology stack, as Dr. Saravanan said, to achieve the benefits of the ecosystem. We understood how AI is transforming the software. We also learned that for end-to-end system development, multiple domain expertise and low engineering costs are the major areas to be focused by Indian suppliers. We also understood the ways and means to achieve these targets and the responsibilities of the OEMs, suppliers, and regulators as well. Now, it is such an honor for me to propose a vote of thanks. On behalf of Mobility Outlook, I would like to express my gratitude to all the participants and the esteemed delegates of the webinar for their presence and contribution to make this event a grand success. I would like to personally thank Mr. Guru Prasad Mudlapur from Bosch, Mr. Binoy Paul from Mahindra & Mahindra, Mr. Kaushik Madhavan from Frost & Sullivan, Dr. N Saravanan from Ashok Leyland, Dr. Anshuman Avasthi from Mercedes-Benz Research and Development India, Mr. Ramanathan V of WAPCO India, Mr. P.K. Banerjee from SIAM, Dr. Madhusudan Joshi from ICAD, Ms. Sapna Ahuja from MACMA India, Mr. Srinivas Aravapalli from Blue Binaries Engineering and Solutions, Mr. Ashim Sharma from Nomura Research Institute, who moderated the panel discussion, Mr. Anup Agarwal of Infineon Technologies India, Ms. Rashmi Rao from MathWorks, Mr. Gaurav Gupta from MG Motor India, and my colleague, Mr. Deepankshadhar Sharma. I would like to thank our sponsors, Infineon and MAPMA India, for their support. Lastly, I would like to thank the team members of Mobility Outlook for their contributions in organizing the webinar. Thanks.